Hi, how are you? Good day. Safety Dog here, Chris Harris. I recently received a letter from a client of mine, and they wanted a little bit of advice. And of course, I responded on the same day and answered their question. But it led me to this point: AMA, ask me anything. I thought if he has this question, then maybe you do too. So I thought I would put a video together with links down below in the show notes where you can find the material as well. But AMAs are Ask Me Anything, so I encourage you to send me an email at chris@safetydawg.com. DAWG is how you spell dog, and I will put that in the show notes as well. But send me an email and ask me anything. I will try to respond. I certainly will respond to your emails, and perhaps your question will be made into a video. So, to that end, my very first AMA, here's his request. May I request the following? If someone does not reply to me for previous employer reference check, instead of repeated request, what is my option? And being a great guy, he said, thank you for your time. So to that end, this is my very first Ask Me Anything. Safety Dog, we're going to be talking about reference checks and history checks next. Welcome to Safety Dog EDU. It is Regulation 391.23 that states, and yes, I've put the link in the show notes below, so you can click on it to read the complete regulation from the Federal Motor Carrier. Here in Canada, of course, we are not governed, or our government has chosen not to stipulate that you do reference checks, history checks. In the United States, Regulation 391.23 clearly says what you have to do. Obviously, it's a best business practice. You need to be able to know who it is that you're hiring. So I would strongly encourage you to do reference checks. And if you are a cross-border carrier, meaning going into the States, obviously you must do reference checks because all carriers who enter the U.S. must comply with the regulations of the Federal Motor Carrier. So what does Regulation 391.23 say? First off, it says inquiry to each state that the driver had a driver's license in. So we would have to translate that to each state and or province that the driver had a license in. So you must make inquiries. In other words, you've got to put the MVR from each jurisdiction that the driver was recently licensed in the last 3 years. You got to put that into the driver file. All right? Then you must also make investigation to the driver's safety performance history. And again, this is during the last 3 years. If you cannot do it, the regulation clearly says, and I quote, document good faith efforts, close the quote. Document good faith efforts. So that is what you must do. What are good faith efforts? How many times do you have to attempt to do the reference checks or the history checks? I don't know. It doesn't say. It says document good faith efforts. In my opinion, it's 3 to 5 times. When I was in the safety position at a large carrier, our policy, and I'm telling you how long ago that was, we use fax machines. We would fax once and then call. Fax a second time and then call, fax a third time, and then again make that phone call. Each fax, of course, had a confirmation sheet so I could document my good faith efforts and they went into the driver file. But each call, I also wrote down exactly what happened. If I left a message or if I spoke to somebody, I would write down the date and the time that I took that action. So in total, that was 3 or 6 attempts to get the reference check. I was comfortable with that. And this never happened to me, but if I had to go to court to document and to testify, what did I do? Was it enough? I was comfortable enough that saying yes, 5 or 6 attempts I felt were certainly enough to document. And then if I did hire that driver, this is what else I did to satisfy myself that the driver had the experience that I required. Right? So that is the good faith efforts and the performance history. You must reply the other person, or you, if you receive a history check from another company. The regulation 391.23 does say you must reply. You do have 30 days to make that reply, and I would hope that in all honesty you do it quickly. As a personal standard, I used to say within 24 business hours. If I got a inquiry Friday morning, I was returning the history check before Monday, or sorry, on Monday often, usually on Friday, but I gave myself that extra time. I would return it on Monday for sure. That was our standard. I didn't want other people waiting, and I hoped if I did that, then when I needed a history check, they too would reciprocate and reply within a reasonable amount of time. Another paragraph there, sorry, I'm just trying to see my notes. Yes, I do make notes. You can make these inquiries by any method that you deem necessary. So what does that mean? It means that you can conduct personal interviews with former employers, telephone interviews. You can do it in writing, and of course writing could be fax or email. And you can accept letters. What does the former employer need to include, or your documentation needs to include the name, the address, the date contacted, and if necessary, the attempts made. And then you must record the information that was received about the driver from the previous employer. Those are all top items. You got to document that. Prospective employers should report failures. You are the prospective employer, and if you are not getting a response, in Regulation 391.23, it does say to refer to Regulation 386.12, and again, that link is in the show notes below. But 386.12 tells you how to report a carrier who is not responding. So it clearly says in the regulation that you are the prospective employer, and you need to report the non-compliance of previous employers. And as I say, 386.12 tells you exactly how to do that. So there you have it. That's my very first AMA. If you like these videos, please click like, subscribe to my channel. There's going to be more coming.